Yeah.
All right. Good day. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. So today we're catching up with our repeat guest co-host, Chuck Wood. I purposely did not release another show in the past week or two because I was actually traveling in North Carolina. We'll get into that. Hurricane Helene sucks. And we kind of hinted at me possibly going there in the last episode. So I thought I'd wait and air it up. But I was catching up with Chuck. Welcome back to the show, sir.
And, it's good to be back.
I called him out here because I was like, I thought I noticed on Instagram this crazy mofo just loves to keep doing something called 75 Hard. And I believe you just said you were on day 11?
Yeah, I'm on day 11.
Yeah. And so I was screen sharing. Let me bring the screen share back up. Catch us up because a lot of people still think it's a fitness thing. It's totally meant to be a mental thing, right? Because of how Andy Frisella created it. So.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I talk to people and it's like, well, I'm going to do 75 hard because I want to get into shape. So I'm not going to do taking the picture and I'm not going to drink all the water and I'm not going to read the book. I'm just going to do the diet and stuff. And I'm like, then you're not doing 75 hard. And it's funny because I've had to restart a couple of times earlier this year. And it was because I forgot to take the progress picture. Right.
Oh, really? That's why you restarted?
Yeah, a couple of times. And right. And so it's okay, look, I'm going to build up the resilience to double check myself that I'm doing the things that I committed to do. Right.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so that's made a big difference. And then, the other thing is I have to say, I feel a ton better when I'm working out. I feel it makes me think about my life when I read these books. So just to recap, there are five tasks is the way he counts them. There are 2 workouts. They're both 45-minute workouts. One of them has to be outside, right? So it's getting colder here in Utah. Some of those are going to be not fun, right?
And that's the point of the program too. It's called 75 Hard.
Yeah, I've gone running in, well, we don't really get pouring rain like other parts of the country, but I've gone running and come back completely soaked.
Well, how many years have you been doing this on and off now? Because, I mean, you and I have been chatting for a few years now, and I know you did it to get ready for a half marathon a couple times, and so...
Yeah, I've been doing it, I think the first time I did it, yeah, that's right. First time I did it, I finished at the beginning of October in 2019, and the only reason I know that is because the last day of 75 Hard was the day I ran the St. George Marathon.
That's what, yes, I was going to say, I thought that was it, yeah.
And so, of course, what does that mean? I got one workout in. It was a 6.5 hour workout, but I only had one. And so later in the day, my wife thought I was insane. I went out and I hobbled around the neighborhood for 45 minutes.
Which, as somebody who's run a marathon, you are hobbling if you're not a regular marathoner.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I went and sat in the hot tub for a while, and I took a nap before I went for my walk, but I went out there, and I just kind of,
It counts.
So...
Because, again, part of those rules, right? One has at least one of the workouts out of the 2 a day have to be outdoors.
Yeah, but the marathon was outside, so I could have done sit-ups inside if I'd wanted to. But
yeah.
But true. So you have to read a book for 10 pages. You have to drink a gallon of water.
Physically read it, not audiobooks.
That's right. Yeah. He's clarified that you can do it like if you have a Kindle or something, right? Or a Kindle app on your...
Yeah.
But you're reading. You have to physically be reading, right? Audiobooks don't count. What did I miss? You have to take a progress
just to add the
picture.
note on that. Do you know why he does that?
What?
Physical reading?
I don't know.
Because it's so much easier to audio. I drive a lot for my business, right? So
I
crush audiobooks all the time. But also, there's a psychological proof that most people will actually partially memorize the content better. Their brain captures it better. Just like, for example, when you physically handwrite something, and you and I both being authors, we understand that, right? Like there's writing and then there's typing, and it's a whole different mental connectivity. So,
yeah. And then, you have to stick to a diet, no cheating, no alcohol. So
which is easy for you because you've never drank alcohol. So.
I've never had a drop of alcohol in my whole life.
Yeah.
But, and some people think that's really strange, and then they're like, "Oh, you're Latter-day Saint," and then then it makes sense, right? And they're like, "Oh, okay," because I know a lot of people have never had alcohol in their whole life.
Sure.
But Anyway, so this time I'm doing it a little different than I have in the past. So in the past, I would typically just pick up training, and it was mostly cardio training for a triathlon or something.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, there are two things that I'm doing different on the fitness end. And so one of them is, and I had heard about the high protein diet before,
Right.
as a weight loss mechanism, and so I was already eating more protein.
And you know
But
me, I'm a hardcore carnivore. So
right, so I signed up for this transformation challenge from First Form, and First Form is Andy Frisella's company, his
yeah.
supplement company, and so but it was like a ridiculously low amount of time to have a coach for 8 weeks or so, and access to their app and everything else, and so it's been awesome. So that's one thing that's really helped, is just having somebody say, okay, dial in your diet this way, hey, you might want to look at some of these supplements. Hey, right? And so it's made a major difference. Last week I lost 6 pounds.
Nice.
And so that's one angle, but I'm doing 75 hard, so I have another workout to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've wanted to do an Ironman ever since I did a marathon.
I remember
And
this.
so I looked into, okay, what's a marathon that's about the right time frame for me to train for it? And I feel like I should give myself plenty of time, right? Make sure that I'm doing it right and that I'm not pushing it and hurting myself. And so the Ironman that I'm looking at is Maryland, and it's next year on September 20th, right? So that gives me almost a year to train. And I had a program that I had already bought on Training Peaks. That's trainingpeaks.com. Mm-hmm. And what it does is you can put a training plan into your calendar, and it'll just tell you what to do every day. And so I've started triathlon training, but I never really got into the weight training, and the transformation challenge with the app. I was encouraged to start doing resistance weight training. So
never been on trainingpeaks.com.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. So yeah, so that's
we're screen sharing the site right now. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
triathlons, everything else. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So anyway, so that's what I've been doing, and like the first time I went and lifted weights was deadlifts day, and I couldn't walk for like 3 days. But I mean I could, but it really hurt to move.
I bet.
But now at this point, I've done that workout a couple more times, and yeah, I'm sore, but I'm not,
well, that's your
I'm not
body,
wishing I didn't have to move.
That's your body reconditioning itself.
Yeah, it just basically, I got to the point where, my body was used to, hey, I've got to recover from these things because he keeps doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and also, as you clean up your life, and people don't realize, even the littlest things, like you and I, for years, I've talked about anti-inflammatory benefits of, whether it be, even you don't have to go full hardcore carnivore like I am, right? You could research more of that ketogenic lifestyle, right? More protein, obviously more fats, cutting all the sugar out. All that stuff is inflammatory. Seed oils, the sugars, all of that stuff, the chemicals, it's all inflammatory. So that improves your recovery post-workout. Yeah. So
another thing, and I'll admit, I'm not like a biochemist, and I don't know how it all works, and it may be placebo effect, but I feel like the fish oil supplements I've started taking have really helped.
No, they've tied fish oil to anti-inflammatory benefits as well. Yeah. So specifically. So I mean, even if you've already cut all the inflammatory bad things like grains and sugars and the seed oils.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's also obviously fish oils are a healthy fat, which besides being an energetic benefit, because your body wants to run on fats, that is the preferred fuel. I've interviewed all the experts on that. Again, your other benefit is they have tied that to just a natural ability of your body to help push inflammation out of the body. So, pretty cool.
And then the last thing, and I don't have it on right now because it died, but I've been putting these blood sugar.
You got the thing you stick in your arm.
Glucose monitor that I stick in your arm, and that's been nice too because I can. Well, I'm diabetic, and so I had it prescribed to me.
Yep.
And so I just go pick them up, and I pay for it with my HSA. And anyway, that's been nice too because then I can see how all this stuff is affecting me, and so
It is a very impressive science what they've gotten into, because it's funny because the friend that ended up, my oldest friend, lives in South Carolina, and I stayed with him to commute back and forth to help in North Carolina, and I didn't know he became type 2 diabetic, and he had that thing on, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that happened. Now, granted, I love the guy, but maybe after all these years, he's only a year or two younger than me, and I'm 47. Still smokes cigarettes.
Getting up there, man.
Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. Age is only a number, right? But it's like, dude, he still smokes cigarettes, which that's not good in any form or fashion. And when he actually was visiting here during the hurricane, when it hit Hurricane Helene, and we haven't hung out since my wedding, and I had to go to the grocery store and buy things I don't buy, because he goes, I was like, hey, do you need anything? I want to be a great host. You know, you're my oldest friend. And he goes, well, he's like, I love coffee, so I know you got that covered. And he goes, you probably have all the normal coffee stuffs, you know, blah, 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 cream, sugar. I'm like, no, there's no sugar in the house, like at all. It literally does not exist in this house. And he goes, oh. He goes, that's okay. I can't have real sugar anyway. And I'm like, all right, I'm not even going to go down that road. But I was like, I don't know you might want to get a second doctor. But anyway, where are you going with this? And he goes, well, they told me I can't have real sugar, but it's okay to have a stevia product. And I'm like, okay, I can't go down this road right now. Besides the fact that your liver is literally, again, I've had all the experts on. It's like, your liver doesn't know the difference. It's still seeing a sugar spike. But anyway, he goes, no, I got the monitor, and you can see how it reacts differently. I'm like, I understand that, but you don't understand the other things happening to your organs and the inflammatory. I was like, you know what? I'm not getting on my healthy high horse. He's your oldest friend. So I had to go down that aisle. I'm never down that aisle in that grocery store. I had to go research stevia leaf products, and I had to go find like the cleanest one I could find. Quick tip. They make little tiny liquid bottles of stevia leaf extract. And then they had the powder crap, right? So I I never bothered looking because I don't buy it. The powder crap, they add dextrose into the powder crap. So I was like, it's already a sweetener. So you're trying to sell people that stevia leaf, right? It's, first of all, that's the other most quote stevia products are not actually excreted from the stevia leaf. It's all BS too. But anyway, again, whole different conversation. But I was like, okay, I just want to say, okay, because I know, read the label. I tell people, skip past the grid, go right to the paragraph of micro ingredients and see what they've hidden in there. So the other thing is, if you buy the little tiny liquid bottle, and I bought the smallest one I could find because it's just going to get thrown out, there was no added crap in it. But if you buy the powder form, they went and added dextrose in, which is another element of sugar. So you just added sugar to the sugar. And I'm like,
see, I'm diabetic, and I tried stevia in something because I was like, oh yeah, you know, this won't raise my blood sugar. And so of course I got the powder and I put it in something I can't remember, and I ate it and my blood sugar went right through the roof. And I was
besides
like,
the fact that they've shown the neurological responses, and that actually stevia, because it is actually sweeter, it is more addicting than the real cocaine sugar, as like the nickname.
But my issue was I looked at it and basically figured out they've cut this 50-50 with sugar. Yeah. And I was like, you know, I call bullshit on all this stuff. Yeah. Like all of the sugar-free stuff that's sugar-free is not sugar-free.
Remember Vinny Twitterich, man. He was my boy. You know, he was my former client, Mr. NSNG, no sugar, no grains. He gave away that PDF for years. He has like 67 different versions of sugar. Nobody realizes how many things have been invented in a lab. It's a whole corrupt thing. Anyway, so I bought stevia. Never thought I'd ever spend money on that. Yeah. And I brought it into my house. But I was like, hey, I'm not trying to judge. All I could do is I let people see what I do. And they can go. But then the other thing I had to buy. Okay. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Diet Mountain Dew. I was like, hold on. So you're going to put the stevia in the coffee in the morning, and then throughout the day you drink Diet Mountain Dew. He goes, yeah, I can't stand water. I'm like, it's like, My God,
Yeah.
dude. Well, no
Back
wonder
to
you're a type 2
75 hard.
diabetic. Yeah.
I drink 2 of these every day.
And that's why I'm telling you all this, because I'm proud of you, bro. I just want to give you
Well,
a shout out. I'm like, dude.
I'll confess that if I go out to eat, I get a diet soda with my food.
Okay.
But it's every once in a great while, and
right.
yeah.
And you know what it does to you now. You have the technology. Yeah. So,
yep.
And I think the technology will help a lot of people.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was just a fun segue to toss in there with what you're doing, because I didn't know he became type 2 diabetic. And then I find that out, and then he continues to consume these things. But it's okay because he's monitoring it. And I'm like, how about you live a life where you don't, like me, I don't have any technology out to monitor anything. I don't have any drugs. I don't have any prescriptions. I'm like, I'll be 50 in a couple of years, no pharma influence. Yeah. So, but I'm the crazy one.
Well, the thing is that you get labeled at being crazy sometimes because I'm crazy. But sometimes it's because you just go outside the norm and it makes people uncomfortable.
But here's the funny thing. You go back 50, 60 years.
Yeah, it's
what
true.
What I'm doing was the norm.
Right.
If what we're doing today, if we had a time machine, Michael J. Fox, right? If we go back in time to the DeLorean, those people would be like, what the hell are you people doing to yourselves?
Right.
We didn't have
you say it's disease. Food, but
yeah. We didn't have the diabetes back then, the heart disease back then, none of this. These were man-made problems. It's like, oh my God. So,
well, and they want us hooked on our food, and they want us hooked on the drugs that improve.
To help us fix the quote food that is doing to us, because it's not food.
Yes.
It's a science experiment.
But it still doesn't fix it. I mean, that's the other problem that I have, because I have plenty of friends that are diabetic, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I just take my medicine and blah 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 blah, right? And I talk to my doctor, and because and it's just like, you know what? I want to make the diabetes go away.
FMD yet? You ever hear of an FMD, functional medicine doctor? So
I've heard of them.
A lot of the MDs who are waking up, they're now going down the functional route to kind of balance that East and West Coast mindset, because that's really what it should be. We should really be more Eastern natural medicine, and then Western medicine, aka the pharma, is supposed to be there just for emergencies, right? Like that's the point of it. But functional medicine's is finally getting its just desserts. And I've met a couple of FMDs here, and I'm loving what they're doing, because the one guy I just met a few months ago, he was an emergency ER doctor for 20 plus years. And he's like, I'm just done. He's like, we have a corrupt system. He's like, I can't be a part of it anymore. And now he's going down the functional route, because he wants to actually cure people.
You want to actually help people. Yeah.
And I told about my dad being type 2 diabetic. Now, granted, my dad, it takes him a long time to listen to the younger whippersnapper, his son. But he's finally down to the minimal dose of one diabetic drug. Now, years ago, he had 2 diabetic drugs. Now, again, years and years ago, when I was raised, he didn't have any drugs. He didn't have any diabetes. Yeah. So I was like, okay, Dad. Granted, I'm probably stricter than when I was as your son on the farm when we were kids. But I was like, if you just went back and did what you did when we were kids, like eggs, bacon, steak, eat a hamburger, your diabetes can be cured. And he just didn't believe me like that. Type 1 diabetes you're born with, right? Can't cure that. Type 2 is a man-made condition. So you and your friends, you can heal the body. We've now proven it. We've seen type 2 reversed. People coming off of the drugs and reversing a condition. Now that is healthcare.
Yeah, and see, that's what drives me nuts about my doctor, is that I'll talk to him and he's like, well, just take your medicine. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to eventually get off the medicine.
That's their job. They're part of the
And he looks
system.
at me and he goes, well, that's never going to happen. So,
and that's where he's a liar, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And I have no problem calling out doctors. They anger me, because you're listening to the pharma, and you've chosen to, once you got out of school, that's it. You stopped learning. When I can pick out and educate better than an MD on things like this, that's scary, because you've chosen to stop learning But thanks to the power of podcasting, which you and I both love, I have had 8 years of podcasting now. For me, you're well over a decade, going on 15.
Yeah.
I don't even know, right? It's like, dude, I was like, and I'm not even
18
trying,
years.
and I'm learning this stuff, right? It's like,
yeah,
hello, like when you commute to your doctor's office or the hospital, throw an audio track on, like consume audiobooks, do something to continue learning and realize maybe you're on the wrong path. Just saying.
Well, and if you're a doctor, you're supposed to be smart, and so you should be smart enough to listen to them and go do your homework and figure out, oh, okay.
But the problem is,
adds up. This doesn't add up, right?
But I also feel bad for your doctor because, as I've interviewed many doctors over the years, they actually will admit, they tell you in the standard MD programming and education, they don't go over nutrition. They go over a little bit on how things metabolize in the body, and they don't, what the organs do, anatomy and all that crap.
Right.
But then they go right into identifying a virus, a disease, et cetera. And then here's the drug for it. They don't actually get taught nutrition. And that's why I'm excited about people like, not to get political for a second, but like, Robert Kennedy and other people like actually like putting health as a priority, because that's what's bankrupting our country, besides the war machine.
Yeah.
But I mean, hello, if we had healthier citizens, we wouldn't have all of these expenses.
Yeah. Right? Well, the other thing is that because I've listened to, Robert Kennedy, I've listened to Callie and Casey Means. I've listened to.
I love them. Callie, Casey Means. I'm excited for them. I'm excited.
Right.
For them.
But my deal with a lot of that is, again, I can go do some homework and I can see what they're talking about. And on a lot of these things, they're mostly calling out the problems, right? They're like, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's what's causing it. You go do a little homework and you figure out, they're pretty much correct.
Yeah.
Right. But the solutions are pretty simple too. It's like, this is bad for you. Don't eat it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I believe Callie and Casey are launching a whole new company, or they already did. And they're
they each have their own.
Trying to get to even deeper education, actual solutions, not just, don't eat that. Right. But it's like, okay, if it's this, then do this,
right.
If it's this, maybe there's a couple different scenarios for you. So I really am excited for the consultation and the coaching, because that's what people need, not just this,
to come full circle. I mean, that's what I'm getting out of this First Form Transformation Challenge is I have a question. I just pop it into the chat and I get a response back from my coach.
Yeah. It's great.
And so it's like, okay, what do I do about this? Okay. And then I got some feedback. I looked through your diet and you need to refine this and take this out and put these other things in. Okay. Right. I can do that.
Yeah. And that takes us full circle back to our author days, right? When we were like, we both met in a group because we were looking for coaching. We were looking for guidance. We were just looking for people. Now, granted, that wasn't the best program, but then we eventually found a great editor and stuff like that. And that's the point, is you want to find the answers and you want to make sure it's easily approachable. And people like you and I, we're going to self-study,
Yep.
So I'm excited for you. 75 hard. I love it. I love the fact you're going to go for the Ironman thing. People say that I've done a lot of crazy things. Like, actually, I just like, not to tie it in, but we did want to talk about it in the show, like the whole Hurricane Helene relief thing. Like, people thought I was crazy going to do that. And I was like, well, you do know I wrote a book about being a hotshot wildland firefighter, and years ago, everybody said I was crazy to go do that too. So, but I did it.
Yep.
This was nothing. And actually, this was thanks to that training from years ago.
Right.
Which I will admit, deep down was a little fun, planning my own mission. It was kind of exciting. My wife thought I was crazy. She's just like, you're going to take a week off, not run your business, and go to North Carolina. I was like, yeah, it's a slow week. I was like, we take vacations. We had a couple of beautiful vacations this year. We did Greece. We did Costa Rica. I was like, I need to go help people. It'll make me feel better. Like you and your background, I mean, it's a big part of your faith. Like you guys actually call them missions, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Like, doesn't everybody have to go on a mission at least some point in their life?
No.
Oh, no? Oh, I thought that was like a standard protocol.
No, they expect the young men to go.
Okay.
You're not really stigmatized or ostracized for not going.
That's good.
But it's generally expected that you'll go.
And what's the acronym? Latter Day. So LDS, right?
Yeah, Latter-day Saints. Yeah.
So there was a bunch of LDS down there.
Oh yeah, with the orange shirts
are those
or the
guys
yellow
LDS?
shirts.
The Samaritan's
The yellow
Purse?
shirts. No.
Yeah, the orange shirts are Samaritan's Purse.
Okay, it's the yellow shirts and it's the Helping Hands.
Oh, okay.
Shirts.
I didn't know. I just I got plugged
That's
in.
us.
I reached out to one of my old fire contacts, and I was like, "Hey, how do I get in there? Because I'm not in that world anymore." And he goes,
Right.
"Well, he's like, you definitely want to." He's like, "It sounds like you might want to be plugged into something, or else you might get turned away."
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, people were getting turned away. I only got turned away once at one town because of quote unquote federal control. I know you'll get a kick out of that. We'll get to that. Because that was kind of tying us back into the last episode, right? Like we were, we vented a little bit about FEMA and their budgetary constraints because they spent their budget on things that have nothing to do with FEMA, like our border problems. But again, that could be a whole other episode.
It could be.
But so quick synopsis. And I don't know if you saw any of this on Instagram. I put all over Instagram and obviously Facebook like I normally do, because once I started going down there, bro, dude, people were like commenting and they're like, you don't see anything about this on the news anymore. They're already not talking about it. I'm like, well, of course, it's not exciting. It's not politics. It's not the election. And that's what frustrates me.
I was going to say, to be fair, we're a week at the point you were down there, maybe 2 weeks away from the election. So,
well, this is the night before I left. This is me like laying out all my gear and figuring out I'm so OCD. So like I literally took, I had this whole rack that I borrowed off my buddy here in the bottom right-hand corner. And I figured out I could fit 20 gallons of fuel and 6 gallons of water. And that didn't include all my chainsaws. I borrowed a chainsaw off my neighbor. And, I even had this heater that a buddy of mine gave me in the box that I was going to put in this barn. And people were already worried about the winter rolling in and people don't have heat. And I was like, you know what? I didn't pay for that. And it doesn't fit my new design that I want to do for the barn man zone anyway. So I just took the whole darn thing down with me and gave it away. I had
makes
so much
sense.
fun.
I mean, if you have electricity, you got heat.
Well, this is a gas. So
that's gas
because there's people who don't have power. But if you have at least have a propane tank, this is a propane fed infrared ceramic radiant heater. So this will heat over 1,000 square feet.
That'll keep you warm. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I was like, dude, I'm taking that with me because I didn't pay for it. I'll just give that away.
Yeah.
I bought all the saws, all the bar fuel, everything else. I had it was a big mission, to tune the saws up before I left. I had a lot of fun with that. But by the way, this was one of my favorite things. As soon as I got to Marshall, North Carolina, this sign was sitting on a bucket. And I was like, that's kind of funny. Hashtag y'all-adarity, like y'all plus solidarity. I'm like, okay, fun play on words. Okay, they're trying to, symbolize people coming together. I liked it. It was kind of fun. But this was crazy. This was a makeshift command center by the citizens at a local business. This is the very first day I arrived. And if you look in the background, do you see all the blue things hanging? Looks like closing lines between the tents. So those are rubber boots.
Oh, really?
Marshall, North Carolina was submerged under the river because they had a 30-foot flood stage.
Wow.
30 feet. So half the downtown was literally taken downriver, ripped completely off its foundation. This is a historic downtown. So the remaining half on the other side, further up the bank, survived, but they took in 3 to 4 feet of river mud that was left behind in the buildings. So these citizens were just showing up every day. They would suit up here, up the ridge at this business parking lot in white Tyvek suits, air masks, and galoshes, these boots. They drive them into the downtown, and they spend all day shoveling. Actually, specifically, the term was mucking out a horse stall. They were mucking the buildings of downtown Marshall out by hand with shovels.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, powerful. I was like, okay, well, I didn't come to muck. I'm here with chainsaws. But that was the first place I plugged into because I just wanted to tie in with them. She was going to pass my information on to some of their ops managers because they're already doing a lot of cutting already. But I was actually plugged into So one of my old fire contacts, his employee was from Hendersonville, North Carolina, only maybe a half an hour south of there. So she had taken 2 weeks off from wildland firefighting and went back home to help. So she was already down there. So she got me plugged into a volunteer group. And then I was slowly trying to get my phone cleared out. But these are faces of people that I got to help. This was the first person I helped. This is Carissa. She's a retired Navy vet. She lives with a traumatic brain injury and PTSD and anxiety. That's why she's got the headphones, because crazy thing, didn't know this. I was like, oh, where were we deployed? She's like, well, I wasn't. I'm like, well, how did all that happen? And she's like, well, I worked on a destroyer. Okay. And she's like, off the coast of the Horn of Africa.
Oh, wow.
So she's like, we were constantly in battles with the pirates. And I'm like, okay, you can't make this up. I'm like, what? I was like, so you have a TBI because of the crazy African pirates who try and steal ships? And she's like, yeah. She's like, we were, some of them were a little aggressive. And I'm like, oh my God. I never met anybody like that, So yeah, I got to take care of her giant trees and stuff like that. And it was just a great experience. This guy, dude, 75 years old. His name is Brantley. He's lived there. I can't do a good Southern accent, but he's like, it's like, how long have you lived here? He's like, I've been here my whole life. I was like, oh, I love it. He goes, I was like, well, how many generations? She's like, oh, my family, 4 or 5 generations. He's like, the land's been sold off here and there. I still got 12 acres. I was like, man, this is awesome. And nobody wanted to help him with this tree. They're like, because it wasn't like actually like flipped over. 1, it was leaning towards his house. 2, it's like practically dead. That lightning strike crack was rotten. So I had to take care of it. But none of the volunteer group I was in were like, there's his house right there, right behind me. So,
y'all.
Yeah. He's just like, well, and then I found out while I'm down there that I didn't even know he had a wife. Like the whole time, never mentions anything. And then I'm leaving after 2 hours of dealing with his trees. And then another car comes in. I'm like, oh, hey, I was like, you must be the neighbor who helped get, because Brantley doesn't embrace technology. So his neighbor happened to put him on our volunteer list, our list. I will say the volunteer group I plugged into. We were on the Signal app. Never used that before. Then we were, they had a Google Drive linked up with a Google spreadsheet being shared across the entire group. There was over 160 citizens in there, mixed in with volunteers and just people. And then, like, dude, I went solo mission the entire time I was down there. I never had to go wait, in 2 days we're going to go here. And like, I was like, I just scrolled through the spreadsheet, found anything marked high priority, anything needing very large chainsaws, and anybody that had not been visited yet. And I just started calling them, and like they had the phone numbers, the names, the photos. I just called people up. Like I just started showing up. It was cool. I was like running my own special ops. And it was working great until the Fed. So what went pretty viral is, and I'll screen share this for the YouTube people. This is all on my Instagram at Scott W. Mulvaney. So this is the famous Chimney Rock. And as you can see with the bulldozers there, that's the river. And the Army Corps of Engineers is pushing the river back to its original place. That's why you see all the dirt piled up. Yeah, the river was all the way where I'm standing. And and this door frame that you can see in front of me is the back of the store that's no longer there. This is the front of the store.
Oh, wow.
All the roof is gone. And the roadblock is, I said, this is, look at this is David spending all week. I will say, the guys are there. They're busting their butts, right? So they brought in these big military transport flatbeds that transport tanks, but they had giant bulldozers on them. And they were literally pushing the river back from both sides to hold it there. So they can rebuild the road, because Chimney Rock was famous because this road, after that dump truck, was gone. You could not get into downtown Chimney Rock. So they needed to push the river back. And then once the water's receded, they pushed it back. Then behind that dump truck, it goes down an embankment. They bulldoze basically down into the new riverbed, which is now the road below this road, which is about 20 feet below me. So, so basically This is, you see the construction at the bottom of the image. This is where the back of that store used to be that was taken away by the river. It's just crazy. Yeah, there's a good shot. So this is literally a door frame of the side of the store just hanging out on the back deck that was barely hanging on that I was standing on to get these photos.
Right.
But yeah, this river was always where it's flowing now, but all over here. And then it went, again, 30-foot flood stage. Just crazy. But I got here and I saw this. And actually, this guy came in behind me. I pulled over and parked and went to talk to these guys. These guys, they're not even police. They're not even military. They're probation officers. And I was like,
oh, wow.
I was like, somebody on probation? He's like, we're just trying to help out. We're from 2 counties over. And I was like, well, I came in to help volunteer. I got, as you can see, all the gear in the back. I wanted to donate extra supplies to the SAL teams. And if you don't have enough SAL teams, I'm here to cut whatever's big. And he goes, I can't let you in. And I'm like, fully self-independent. Don't need anybody's help. I'm good to go. Got my own food, my own water, everything else. He's like, oh no, this is Chimney Rock's under federal control.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm a citizen and I pay for that federal control. So can I please go in and help? Won't let me in.
Wow.
I was like, okay. So that was my first time ever being kept out from helping people. Now I get it. This is one of the most destroyed, one of many heavily damaged towns. And I get it. The whole time I was standing there talking to him, I stayed nothing but calm and professional. Dude, there was a convoy. Like dump trucks are coming in with boulders in them because they have to rebuild up the road.
Right.
And then they come out full of trash. Like they're just, so I'm sure I couldn't see everything. There's probably giant like claw machines and earth moving equipment and everything in there. So I could see the liability. But even this guy, he goes, well, he's like, well, he's like, I'm here to deliver this trailer. That trailer that was in the last image. He's like, I'm just a transport guy. The address, according to my GPS, is further ahead. And this was specially ordered yesterday. And he's like, well, we need to have your security clearance card. And he goes, I'm just here to deliver a trailer. And I was like, so at that point, I talked to the guy. He was nice. He goes, well, you're going to love this. He goes, well, I was like, so who can I go help? I was like, I'm here to help. And he goes, well, if you meet any of the local citizens nearby, he's like, you're going to meet some that don't like the federal government being here. And you're going to meet some that don't care. I was like, okay, well, give me both sides of the story. He said, well, if you turn around and go back behind you there, right next door to Chimney Rock is Lake Lure, North Carolina. So what blew this road out ended up going up and over the road and flooded right into the lake across the road. So the lake is like still brown after weeks later. Anyway, so Lake Lure Inn is now basically in that area became FEMA headquarters. I love how FEMA sets up their headquarters at the only resort in town. That's funny. How's that budget treating you? And then, and by the way, when I drove past by it, I saw the big tank transports that brought the bulldozers in, and I didn't see any other vehicles, any other personnel. Now, again, they could have been in downtown. I don't know. It's like, well, what else? He's like, well, you could also go back to the donation site set up at Ingles Market. It's like their local chain grocery store. He's like, but that's now under federal control too. And I'm like, well, why is that under federal control? He's like, that one was justified. I'm like, what do you mean justified? He goes, well, we had to run the militia out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, well, so the first week it all happened, people tried sending in support and donations coming in through Lake Lure. So apparently this is the mountains of North Carolina, man. I mean, this is country.
Wild men out there, huh?
Dude, there's like one of the quote unquote militia groups that are deep in the mountains came in to quote help the local citizens. Upon quote helping, they took over the market and started confiscating all the donations and taking them back to their compounds.
Oh, wow.
In the mountains. So then the local citizens of Lake Lure and Chimney Rock observed this. They're like, you're not here to help your fellow neighbor. You're taking things for yourselves. So then that also added reasons to bring in some federal support. So I'm saying this because I'm not trying to pick one side or the other. There is good that is happening, right? So Anyway, so long story short, he's like, by the way, he's like, if you went 20 minutes up into the mountains here above Lake Lore, he goes, there's an HVAC contractor up there. And he's like, just all the citizens just started working with him, and he turned his entire business into a giant donation center. So I drove up there, and it was so inspiring. I mean, there's just, they have, you pull up to the front of the business. That's where local citizens just pull in, and it's like going shopping. And then I'm down the side street of the business. That's where I pulled back. That's where you drop off donations. And I was only there for a couple of hours because I had to wait my turn to give them all my chainsaw supplies. Next thing you know, I'm carrying generators off of U-Haul trucks. And I'm like, where's all this stuff coming from? And I see guys wearing Rotary Club polo shirts and like this club and this group or this church. And I was like, I mean, my hair is standing up. I got the goosebumps right now. I was just so inspired, man. I'm like, dude, like they had a serious operation going on. And this was all citizen. There was a guy.
Oh, yeah.
I met what's his name? His name was Brandy. I'm like, how you doing, Brandy? And he goes, heavy Southern accent. I'm like, oh, are you from around here? And he goes, oh, no, I'm up from Mississippi. I'm like, Mississippi? I was like, why are you up here? He's like, oh, my church gave me a call. And I'm like, well, this is so. What are you here for? He's like, oh, all this is mine. I'm like, what? He goes, that tow behind meat smoker over there is mine. The second one behind that's mine. That camper is actually a shower facility. That's mine. Those two grills set up behind you there, the pop-up tents, those are mine. And I'm like, what do you do? And he goes, well, I'm a contractor. But then when, literally quote, when shit hits the fan, as he said it, he goes, the church gives me a call and we go. And I go to all the, he's been all over the South. He's been hurricanes, floods. I'm like, brother.
That's awesome.
It was so inspiring. I was like, dude, well, are you living here right now? He goes, oh yeah. He's like, see that field over there? He said, that tow behind camper, that's mine. I put it up there. I got a good view of Chimney Rock from up here. And then, I mean, you'll get a kick out of this, not to bring politics into it, but the one pop-up tent up front when the cars pull by, they had these sweet little old ladies in there, all in blinged out. Like these were retired ladies from Myrtle Beach, Florida.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, blinged out, red, white, and blue, bedazzled Trump hats. And all. I was like, I walked in there. I was like, oh, hello. And they're like, you hungry? Like they're making meals and every car that pulls in.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
I'm like, dude.
Whatever you could do.
I don't care what your politics are. It was just beautiful. Like there's old ladies making meals in to-go containers from the stuff coming off the cooking stuff that the volunteers are running from what Brandy brought from Mississippi.
Yep.
I'm like, my God. So anyway, I just want to give you a little bit of a follow-up because last time you and I chatted, and I'll bring the show to a close. I don't think I actually said I was going to go to North Carolina. I was thinking about it. And, well, it happened.
See, and I really wish that I had been in a place where I could go because, I mean, for heaven's sake, I mean, I've gone through some stuff this year, but nothing like that. And those people needed the help.
And they still do. That's why I wanted to get this show off because just like you said, one of my oldest buddies that I helped him start his business here in the Valley where I live in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Shout out to Brian Strausser of Strausser Home Improvements. He hung the mantle over my fireplace. And like he and I met over mountain biking and running chainsaws years ago before we became friends, before we started talking business. He's been on the podcast multiple times. Anyway, he goes, dude, where was the phone call?
Right.
I was like, you have a business to run. I had a quick, slow week. I just said, I can go. He's got a daughter. I'm like, dude, I'm a little bit more mobile than most people. I can drop and go. And so now he's also on the board of my charity, Fuel Foundations. So even though we launched our boot campaign this year to pay for wildland firefighters' boots, my charity helped all the fundraising I do and the money I put into it helped pay for my trip down. Well, now I'm paying for his trip. He's going down in 2 weeks. The week of the 16th, he's like, dude, my business has gotten so successful thanks to you and my hard work. He goes, right around the holidays a couple of years ago, he's like, I started helping local people who need help. Like I need a porch fixed, but I don't have the money, right? He would just donate his time and fix people's homes. He goes, I'm going to load up my chainsaws and my easy tools, and I'm going to go and I want to cut some sweet little old lady in the mountains tree up and fix her porch or whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
all right, let's talk strategy. So that's what I'm doing fundraising for him right now. We've already had almost $1,000 donated towards the cost of his trip.
Nice.
He doesn't know this yet. The chainsaw that my neighbor lent me, we bought it through the charity off of my neighbor because he's retired. He just flips things.
Right.
He was going to flip it, and then it was practically mint until I got a hold of it. So then I found a company called West Coast Saw on the west coast of the USA, and they do performance upgrades on chainsaws. So I ordered all the upgrade parts for his saw, and I'm pimping his saw. I'm pimping his ride. I'm like, you gotta upgrade it. It's gonna give it a few more horsepower, for his journey. So that's how I wanted to close it out a positive note. It's like, I just wanted to go down and make a difference. And then all these people are like, the news isn't talking about it. I had no idea the damage is still this bad. And I want to make sure people know this on this podcast is that Brian's going down in a couple of weeks. It's like, dude, they are far from healed. I mean, this is going to take years for them to truly recover this region and build back. But everybody's coming together. I don't care. There was Mennonites there. There was, like I said, LDS. Who cares? There's just all these people helping. It was wonderful. And they're all citizens.
Let's say that Joe Citizen is listening to this and they go, well, I want to go. Maybe they can afford to go or they can raise the money to go.
Yeah.
Is there somebody you recommend that they reach out to or some group that...
I will say the biggest group is that Samaritan's Purse. I don't know much about the church groups, but they're huge, man. They're actually headquartered in North Carolina. So I've been following them online. I'm going to put all this in the show notes, but there's a couple helicopter groups, like just people with local who own helicopters who joined these charities. And one's called Aerial Recovery. They were there helping from the first week. And another one was called Operation Hilo. And they're still doing stuff. And these groups are also helping in Florida after Milton too. So there's a bunch of, so those are the three that I vetted, besides my own charity. But I mean, I was like, it's amazing. And yeah, stuff is getting semi back to normal. Gas stations were open. The water, like Asheville and Swannanoa and all the towns I was running my chainsaws in, they got water back flowing again, like in the city infrastructure. But it's potable. They can't drink it. So people are still having to go out and get clean water. I found a coffee shop that reopened, and they had their plumber come in and retap plastic flow lines into portable jugs just so they could open their business so they can make safe coffee and drinks and stuff like that. It's very innovative, actually. I thought it was very impressive. So people are trying, and it's a lot of healing ahead. But again, I will say, and what was the other church group you mentioned? Helping Hands?
Well, that's the Latter-day Saints.
Oh, okay. So
all of the yellow vests and shirts say Helping Hands.
Okay. I definitely saw that stuff too. Because who cares? It's just organizations want to come in and help. And
people need the help. So
it's not like they're trying to convince you to go join their church. It's like, no. This is what people do when they love helping people. So
yeah,
I love that.
That's the Christian message, right? Yeah. I mean, sure, go ye into all the world, right? You go preach the gospel, but it's also take care of your neighbor.
Yeah, and trust me, I met the owner of the HVAC company. He goes, he's like, I was in Florida when Helene happened, and then I have friends and family in Myrtle Beach, and they all said, well, we're coming back with you. That was those sweet little old ladies, and then they're like, well, what else can we do? And that's all these other people start coming in. He's like, you're now the because this is a remote business. He's like, the fact you made it in this deep. He's like, thank you. I'm like, why? He goes, well, now you're now the sixth example of 6 different states. So he has people there over that past week or two from 5 different states that were coming there to help.
Oh, wow.
I added a new state to their list. I was like, oh, that's cool. So
awesome.
That's an example of just all the wonderful things out there. So as somebody who's a big religious guy, and I think you set a great example as a proud dad, and obviously everything you've done locally with your, trying to help the local government and school issues and stuff like that. Like, how would you want to close the show out?
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who people are. Doesn't matter. I mean, we're not qualifying these people in order to help them. We're qualifying them only in you need help, and so I'm going to come help.
Yeah.
Right? That's it. That's the whole story. That's all that matters.
I love it. Yeah, because that's what it needs to be. I love that.
Yep.
It needs to be that short, sweet, and simple. If we can get all the other BS out of the way,
right?
Like I'm seeing down there right now, things just happen, and we didn't need any governmental assistance. I mean, yeah, the giant bulldozers are cool, but there's also local contractors. They're just donating their time, their machinery, their equipment, their employees. It's amazing. They're just like, there's a contractor who literally rebuilt an access road because the road was taken away by the river, from Bat Cave to Chimney Rock. They spent the past 2 weeks bulldozing the riverbank, or the new riverbank, and cutting a temporary road in so they can get vehicles in and out.
Right.
I was like, this is so cool. I just love following this stuff online. It's great.
Yeah.
So thanks for the time, Chuck. I'm going to give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Wood returning once again. I hope you enjoyed us closing the show on a positive, motivational, inspirational note. I'm going to keep sharing content through my Instagram and Facebook, obviously, too. Again, if you want to learn more about my charity, go visit fuelfoundations.org. Brian's heading down in a couple of weeks. And again, we're funding his trip as well. But again, I'll put all the other organizations in the show notes that I've either come across, met, or have at least vetted since I've been down there. If you, like, as Chuck, I love he brought out there, it's like, if you're feeling inspired and you're looking to do something, they're not going to have a shortage of work for a couple of years. So it's a hot mess, and they're just trying to dig out. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to another Live the Fuel show. Remember, we are here to fuel your health, your business, and your lifestyle. That's why I always keep bringing Chuck back on. We're doing it well together. I love it. So thanks for tuning in. And remember, you too could live the fuel. We'll talk to you guys again soon.